Welcome to On the Issues. I'm your host, Nicholas Balsi. Today, I'm here with film director and producer, Chris Eyre. So what influenced you to become a film producer and director?
I started out doing still photography in Oregon. I was raised in a small community called Klamath Falls, Oregon, which is north of Mount Shasta. And one day I picked up a 35 millimeter still camera, an SLR, from the Title IV Indian Education Program. And I took it out and I started shooting photos, and I never looked back. I started to make my own exposures, in the canisters in high school, and I'd pack that with like 50 exposures and sit there with a shutter drive, auto shutter drive, and just blast away like it was a machine gun on shots of nothing but landscape sometimes. And it would be like, how's this landscape different than this piece that pans across a certain degree of lakefront or something like that. And I really came to it through images and photography, and actors came a lot later.
So how has your Native American heritage played a part in all of the work that you've done?
I always looked at movies early on, and I didn't think much about Indians in movies. And at a certain point it clicked for me that they weren't people that I knew. The Indians in movies weren't people that I ever recognized, and that came to me really late in my process as an artist. But I used to look at the Edward Curtis photographs. These are the photographs that were taken at the turn of the century about the vanishing race, and they're about, the 30,000 photographs that he went around the Americas and shot. And you look at these people's faces, and I used to look at the pupils in people's eyes, and that's what arrested me about telling stories about Indian people. Was literally looking at photographs that were almost 100 years old or somewhere about there, and somehow I stepped into the image, and same thing, I started making movies based upon that sensibility and that feel.
Are there any kind of stereotypes that you attempt to dispel in your work?
I don't ever try to consciously dispel anything. I think literally it's just about doing something that the audience empathizes with, that the audience connects with. I mean, I love documentaries probably more than dramatic features. There's a movie called Dust to Glory, which is on the Baja 1000. It's an amazing movie, and it's purely about entertainment, and that the show has a life force to it. Friday Night Lights on NBC is a great show that I was booked to direct before the strike this year. And what that show has in spades is it has a life energy in it, in the camera work and the acting and the spontaneity and the improvisation. And really, for me, it's more about endowing something with a life energy than it is about, saying I have an issue.
Now, are any, in mainstream media and in mainstream entertainment in America, why do you feel Native Americans aren't usually represented?
Well, I always make jokes about it. I always say, we'd like to be in a McDonald's commercial eventually. And that's not true. I mean, honestly, I don't think Indian people are looking to be in a McDonald's commercial, but in order to have an Indian person in a McDonald's commercial, they would have to have braids, and that would probably get in the way of them eating their hamburgers or drinking their milkshakes or something like that. But seriously, it's more about, we represent such a small numeric minority that people want to see us as traditional and not as contemporary. I mean, you see it in everything from Walker, Texas Ranger to Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, but really rarely do you see contemporary work made about Native people that's not tied to them being traditional. And that's been my MO for the last 10 years, which is I make work about Native people that is not tied to tradition all the time. It may be sometimes, but it's more about progressive, healthy, contemporary people living like body snatchers amongst us.
Neat. Now, is there any political issues that you think Native Americans specifically haven't been equally represented on?
I mean, as far as gaming goes, I believe in gaming. Gaming's great for Native economy. A lot of times people think that Indian country is getting rich off gaming, and you're talking about a very small group of people that are getting rich off gaming, and that gaming should continue for decades to come, and hopefully it'll start to disperse, and tribes will start to diversify their economies to other tribes, and hopefully it'll go for a while, because it's the coming back of a buffalo of a sort, and I think Native people deserve that for the next 100 years.
Now, moving on specifically to your actual work, like your film Smoke Signals, which won the Sundance Film Festival a Filmmakers Trophy, which I believe is the biggest prize that year. Now, how did this come about? How did you get the idea to submit a film like this to that competition?
In 1994, I was doing my master's degree at NYU in filmmaking, and I read a book by Sherman Alexie called The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fist Fight in Heaven. And there was a 12-page story in that book that grabbed my attention. It was called This Is What It Means to Say Phoenix, Arizona. And based on that 12 pages in the anthology, I called him up, didn't know him, and I said, I'm a graduate film school student at NYU. I want to make this into a feature. And he said to me, that sounds crazy. This is before he wrote Indian Killer. This is before he had a novel. And he said, let's try. So basically, 15 years ago or so, we got on that ride and tried to make Smoke Signals, and it still took another 3 or 4 years to actually be realized, have it win awards at Sundance. Harvey Weinstein bought the movie in 1997. I've screened, everywhere from, prison systems to, countries all over the world with it, universities. The Clintons screened it while they were in office. It became a really endeared love movie and in the Miramax classics, and it's a movie basically about forgiveness.
Now, you hear a lot about these documentaries winning awards at the Sundance Film Festival. That specific award, where does that rank on the various different awards they do give out?
That's the best award of all time at Sundance. We actually won the very best award of all time at Sundance, and it was only given once, and that was in 1998. I'm kidding. Actually, they give the award every year, but I'm kind of biased. I'm a little biased towards it. But yeah, the Audience Award is, usually the award that I think Little Miss Sunshine won 2 years ago, and it's what the People's Choice is basically, and that's a pretty savvy audience at the Sundance Film Festival. It also won the Filmmakers Trophy, and that was a nice touch on it too. But it's a movie I made 10 years ago, and people still love the movie. People still talk about it, and I get quite a bit of email about it, and Sherman does too. Sherman Alexie and I are trying to make another movie called A Whale Hunt, and it's about a group of Indians in the Pacific Northwest that go on a traditional whale hunt. It's based on a true story that happened in 1999, and hopefully we'll get that off the ground.
And last but not least, do you plan to move past where you are right now? Are you satisfied with doing smaller scale films, or would you like to do a Hollywood blockbuster?
I've been around Hollywood for years, and I got a lot of offers after Smoke Signals to do some big movies, and I really passed them by the wayside. For me as a filmmaker, I'm a big fan of Oliver Stone's and Jonathan Demme's and etc. And when I get put up, for a Hollywood movie against A-list directors like that, not that I don't think of myself as an A-list director, it takes on a different life because I'm more geared towards understanding what Indian people are, and more interested in how we line up in contemporary society. So for me to go to the mat against A-list directors, somewhere it loses its lust for me in development, and I know that from experience. I seem to always turn back to a simple story about Indian people that I can identify with. So it goes back to the Edward Curtis photos, where I look at the images and I say to myself, there's something in there that I want to grasp, that I want to hold on to, and I'm more of an artist in that way than a filmmaker.
How deep does a director get involved into the process concerning acting and the talent?
Acting's an interesting thing, and I heard Spike Lee say this once, that by the time he made his 5th feature, he just started to learn how to work with actors. And it's really true. When you go into an interview, a lot of times they say, I am probably going to do some stuff for NBC this year. But, the question is, are you a actor's director or are you a shooter? And right away, you got to kind of know what that means. And I'm a shooter. Basically, I come in and I look at these actors and I know that they know what they're doing, most of them, all the time. And you expect them to do their job, and you can, help push them this way or push them that way. But it's not really a case where I came from theater and I'm actually going to go in and, do some method work with them and really understand where they're coming from and do like a quarter of like psychotherapy work. So it's more about, as a shooter, you know, I'm a filmmaker. I come in and I really let the actor do their thing and I give them direction, but I'm more about, you know, the camera and the aesthetic and how to manipulate the aesthetic and what to do with it, you know, and some digital stuff, and that's where I'm much more a shooter. So working with actors came to me late also. It's something that I wasn't hugely conscious of until, you know, my more recent work, which less and less people have seen, unfortunately, than Smoke Signals. And but I've been out there and working. I won a Directors Guild of America award 2 years ago for a movie called Edge of America, which is a great movie that you can get at Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, Netflix. And I just came to working with actors, you know, late. But I love actors. I love what they do. I'm always amazed by them, especially when they're, you know, friends or you know, colleagues that I know, because to see somebody actually do their craft is a really amazing experience. And sometimes you forget, you know, when you're so friendly with somebody, what it is that their real talent is, until you turn on the camera and you start to watch and you're like, wow, this person is saying something through the aesthetic that's really pleasing.
You've done quite a few films. You've done some things on television series as well. So day by day, how does that work for you? Do you have a specific person, like an agent, looking for certain things that you can get involved in, or are you submitting your work and examples of your work to various people day by day?
You know, as a filmmaker, it's a total learning process where nobody gave me a roadmap, but at this point, I'm self-sustaining, which, knock on wood, hope continues. For me, I basically have a C game, a B game, and an A game. I have an agent that handles the A work, which kind of filters to me. You got to go up against, you know, all the big directors. That stuff doesn't come in a lot. The B stuff is stuff that I'm hired on. I'm doing some stuff for a group right now that, you know, will be commercial work that'll be seen. And then the C stuff is really independent work. I made a movie called Imprint that is just going into distribution now. We made for $150,000 2 years ago.
Wow.
And are looking for a distributor right now. It's a great movie. You can look up the website, Imprint the Movie, and it's a great movie, and you can see the caliber of performance and everything that you could make, that anybody could make, with a digital camera for about $150,000, and, you know, hope that they can get their money back. And usually at that price, you can get your money back.
So we're seeing a lot of things go digital, HD, with small cameras that you can just carry around. Is that a lot of you know, films being made that way?
Well, actually, the ironic thing is, look at Cloverfield, you know, which is like, is it Cloverfield or Cloverdale? It's Cloverfield.
Cloverfield.
Yeah, I just saw that in the theater, and, you know, that's a $25 million production that they, you know, give the DV experience to, the mini DV experience. $25 million production, and they're shooting it as a DV movie. And so ironically, you know, everything kind of comes back, and I'm not sure that's going to continue, but people were pitching stories in this DV aesthetic, you know, real recently, because Cloverfield made, you know, I think $48 million its opening weekend or something. Maybe it's 38, but, you know, everybody's always watching and learning, and, you know, digital technology is really great. I've shot digital a lot of times, and it's fast and simple, and it's great to work with. So, you know, I always say it's not about the camera and equipment, and that's what's really important for filmmakers to understand, like myself. It's literally about what you're putting on that canvas, and people get caught up in the technology, I think, a little too heavily sometimes. It's literally about, do you have something to say? And when I was at NYU Film School doing my graduate degree, I realized we were all paying $35,000 a year to go to film school, plus the cost of our films, and half the class didn't have anything they wanted to say.
So it all comes down to that.
It all comes down to, you have to have some sort of vision for something. It could be an ice skating, you know, movie, or a baking movie, or, you know, a Western. But I think you really have to have a point of view, and you have to continue that point of view at a steady pace, you know?
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show and offering your insight and everything, and good luck to everything in the future in your career.
Awesome. I'm happy to be on The Daily Show.
That's all the time we have for our show today. I'm Nicholas Ballasy, and thanks for watching.